the main principal people here we're talking about, you got Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, Harry Shearer, and director Rob Reiner. This is the directorial debut of Rob Reiner in this
Mm,
movie. He was a
amazing.
TV show host, and he was a star in, I think it was All in the Family was the show that he was in before this. So essentially, the idea of this comes from what I read. So Christopher Guest, he was in the 70s, he was in LA. He's in the lobby waiting for a friend at a hotel, and this British band came in. To this day, he refuses to say what band it is. And the manager says to the bass player, "Where's your bass guitar?" And he goes, "What bass guitar?" He goes, "Your guitar, where is it?" He goes, "Oh, I think I left it at the airport." And he goes, "What do you mean you left it at the airport? What did I leave at the airport? Your bass guitar." "Yeah, I left it at the airport." So this was the dialogue, and he kind of kept this
Yeah.
in his head. And are you surprised to hear that it's a bass guitarist that did this, by the way? I'm not at all.
No. Not at all. But amazing.
So years later, Rob Reiner has this show, TV show called The TV Show. It's kind of like a Saturday Night Live kind of spin-off thing. And Christopher Guest and Michael McKean and Harry Shearer are on this. And Christopher Guest is like, "Hey, we should." I had this idea about this band, so I actually made up Spinal Tap for this show.
Awesome.
And they did like they kind of created the characters there. And then when Rob Reiner's like, "I want to go into movies," that's when he came back to this idea, and that's when they started doing the whole thing about we're gonna sit down and we're gonna do kind of like almost the Bible of Spinal Tap. They want to know everything that's going back there. Um, I don't know about you though, but my favorite member out of all of them, because I was a bass guitarist, is Harry Shearer's guy.
Yeah.
Um, and there's many reasons for that. Bass guitar number one, number two, Harry Shearer is just awesome. And his name is Derek Spores, which I think is like the ultimate kind of guy. Did you
Yeah.
have a favorite member of Spinal Tap along this collective?
He was too, because he was almost like the outcast, if you like. He was the one that was sort of the sitting there smoking his pipe, which I thought was hilarious every time they did an interview. And he was, stuck in that giant egg thing that he couldn't get out of. And it was just almost like the comic relief of the band, even though the main two guys, Nigel and David, were sort of running the show. He was always there in the background, Derek. And it was kind of like the little brother that was, playing along with the big guys. And he was funny to watch every time. His motions going through the metal detector with the, down his pants. Like it was he comic genius. I think he was brilliant.
You mentioned before about music documentaries that came after. There was actually a bunch of documentaries that came beforehand as well, before Spinal Tap came out, which the guys in the movie in the group really took inspiration from. The first movie was this documentary, Bob Dylan documentary called "Don't Look Back." It came out in 1967. Um, and a lot of their kind of like the kind of like cinema verite kind of stuff, the documentary kind of stuff, that's where they said we need to make something like that, like a
Hmm.
handheld camera throughout the whole thing. And supposedly there's a scene in the movie where at a Manchester gig, Bob Dylan and his entourage were going backstage trying to find a way out, and they couldn't do it. That was all captured on camera, so they kept on to that as well. Then there's the band, the Martin Scorsese documentary on the band. And the whole point of Rob Reiner's character, who in the movie is called Marty DeBurgi,
Hmm.
is a riff on Martin Scorsese, because Scorsese appears in the documentary as himself, and you see him, and he's a big fan of the band. So they took that from that movie. And then, on top of all of this, Harry Shearer talked about how he knew the keyboard player from Uriah Heep.
Hmm.
John Sinclair was his name. And he was talking about how they just returned from tour, and one of the places they played at was an Air Force base. So they took
Right.
that and they put it in the film as well.
Yeah.
And so they got all of these kind of things come together. But what's really interesting as well is that after the film comes out, every rock band is convinced that it's about them. And even though it isn't, like what's the stories that maybe you heard? Like one thing I've heard is that what was his name? Jeff Beck was actually convinced that Nigel was based on him because of the hair and the thing and
Oh,
everything.
you can see it.
You
You
can
can
see
see
it,
it.
but
Yeah.
but Christopher Guest denies it. But Jack Beck can clearly see. Like, what do you see? Like, you know a lot of bands, a lot of rock bands. What do you see when you see Spinal Tap? What kind of bands kind of bring to mind to you when you see what that band is in this movie?
Yeah, I look at the look, and it was very, very new wave of British heavy metal. Like it is that very Iron Maiden kind of thing. Even the way that they dressed, the way that they acted, the way that even Derek played the bass, it's very Steve Harris. You know,
Mm.
they obviously took inspiration from a lot of those bands and brought it on stage. Even very early Def Leppard. It's the very English stuff. I don't really see much American in it, but I see that really new wave of British heavy metal stuff that they did. And I think they absolutely nailed it in picking everyone. And if a lot of members of different bands are seeing themselves in it. They're doing something right, right? So they've nailed it.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.